there, all as I should say, having been in Mississippi last week. Y'all, I love y'all, by the way. It works better than you. Hi, Dennis Prager and Julie Hartman.
Shalom.
And after spending great amounts of money on research, they came up with the name Dennis and Julie.
Yes.
It was well worth all the money spent.
Well, you know what? Better simple than bad. Better simple than something stupid.
Well, you know, Einstein had a great line about that. I'm curious if you know this. Things should be as simple as made as simple as possible, but not simpler.
That is a good line.
Why did I share it with you?
You know, there are a few things like...
Isn't it amazing? She's actually starting in on that line. I was sure that would basically die and we'd move on. Nothing dies on Dennis and Julie.
It always starts with an anecdote.
It is really funny.
Like, you know, the sun was shining today and then
well, let me tell you about the sun.
Yes, we have, and then you go, I have a theory on that.
And then I'll tell you I have 2 sons. And it'll just go God knows where. All right, go ahead.
By the way, as a total aside, it's amazing. You're one of 2 sons. You have 2 sons.
Oh no, you don't know.
Your son has 2 sons, and Sue has 2 sons.
You never heard me tell you this?
No, I think you have.
Yeah, my father had 2 sons. I have 2 sons. My son has 2 sons, and my wife has 2 sons. That's all I know. I don't know 3, and I don't know daughters.
Lucky.
Okay, go ahead.
You're probably lucky. You're probably lucky that you don't know daughters. My dad is listening like he's lucky.
No, I'm not complaining. Okay.
I was going to say about names, you know, because obviously when I was naming my show Timeless, I didn't want to call it the Julie Hartman Show. No offense to people who call it the, you know, insert name show. You can do it because you're famous. You know, like it makes sense for you to call it the Dennis Prager Show.
You were right.
Or the Ben Shapiro Show. But I didn't want to, because people would be like, who the hell is Julie Hartman? You know? Mm-hmm. And I think it's a very kind of, everyone does that paradigm. And again, if you're famous, it makes sense. But when you're a little plebeian like me, you probably shouldn't do that. But when I was thinking about names, you know me, I get so intense and so like think it's, you know, this name would be the end of the world if it were bad. And then I kind of came up with this shocker theory about names, especially names of talk shows. Unless it's really, really, really bad and stupid, I actually don't think it matters that much.
Excellent point.
I really don't.
I'll tell you, the name of a book is incredibly important.
Totally.
And I say it both as the author of titles that were great and titles that weren't great. That means...
So that's interesting. What titles do you not think were great?
Well, I don't, believe it or not, Still the Best Hope. I think the subtitle should have been perhaps the title. Why the World Needs American Values.
I agree with that.
Because it doesn't tell you if the title doesn't tell you anything, it's not good.
I hate to say it, but I agree. It's not a bad title.
No, I know.
I agree with you.
It hurts me.
Well, it's okay.
Okay.
Clearly, people have read and were very influenced by the book.
You did.
That was your book that influenced me the most.
You wrote me, and then the rest is history.
So, at the risk of making it about me for just a moment, I think that God does play a role in each of our lives. I think that God, if you're aware of it, you can sometimes see the hand of God in the way that He leads you. I mean, you certainly saw the hand of God the day that you met your wife, because you do all these meet and greets and you stay after to talk to every single person who is an attendee at your speech. And then literally the last person in line was the best woman you could have ever found and married. So the point is, I think, again, if you look around, you'll be able to see God's hand in things. I think God leads and influences me through book choices. I really do. Because your book, you don't understand. When I was in that time in my life, I didn't read books very much. I'm a fiend now with reading books. But back then I didn't so much. And it's amazing to me that I discovered you on PragerU, and then I decided to order that specific book.
Yeah.
It was, and I think that was kind of divine. And then when it showed up, I actually was going to return it, not because there was something, bad, not because I saw it was Still the Best Hope and I thought that's a bad title, but because I thought, I ordered too many things. I want to save money. I'm going to return this book. I'm probably not going to read it. And then something told me to read it. I'll give you another example. About a year and 2 months ago, I literally woke up one morning. This was shortly after I graduated from college and in that summer before I started my job. I literally woke up one morning and I thought, I should reread The Scarlet Letter. And why would I have that thought? I hadn't read it since ninth grade. But I literally woke up and I said, I need to reread it. I went into my bookshelf. It was there from high school. I reread it. And now it's one of my favorite books, a big part of, themes I talk about in my show. And I did a PragerU book club with Michael Knowles on it. I could give more examples, but anyway, it just made me think that is the book that led me here.
That's right.
Still the Best Hope.
Well, let me, since you mentioned it, just for those listening or watching, there's a book of 3 books about America, about the left, and about Islam.
And what a time to read this book.
And if you want to understand all 3, I think it's the best book that does all 3 in one.
Yes.
Okay. Still the Best Hope. Thank you for that.
But back to the names thing, I actually don't think names of talk shows matter that much.
I suspect that you're right because I can't think of anyone that stands out. It's
Right.
always either I like the individual or you're right. It matters in books, and I don't know where else it matters. It's an interesting point.
Even, and this is said with so much respect for the Daily Wire. If you look at the name The Daily Wire, it's not a particularly
Right, sexy name. Yeah,
sexy name.
That's correct.
It's kind of just
but
there.
it doesn't matter.
But
It's
it
a
doesn't
giant.
matter because
It's exactly right. All right, well said. Anything else on your mind? I got a lot on my mind. So I have an interesting thought for you. So it's been a very difficult time because of the monstrosities in Israel. And this is a good example of when I tell people about Dennis and Julie, who are big fans of mine and my shows and my writings and so on, I say, I promise you that things as open as I am, and I really am, on my own show, things are brought out about me in Dennis and Julie that otherwise just don't get mentioned. And it's not because I'm hiding it, but because in dialogue with someone, in particular you, so here's a good example of something I didn't mention on the show. I did tangentially, but not the way I'm going to mention it now. So it's been a very intense time since the horrible attacks on Israel, the greatest loss of Jews in a day since the Holocaust. I mean, it's really been difficult.
And the world changed.
I hope it changed, to be honest. We'll see. I don't know how long human memories are, but maybe it did. We'll get to that in a moment. But this is actually just a personal and professional note, not a big macro note, but it is interesting. So I always go over with Alan, my producer, the show, but basically not so much the show because I don't know what I'll talk about until 5 minutes before.
No, that is literally true.
Yes, it is literally true.
It used to give me a heart attack, but
yes.
Now I know it's just
right.
you.
There are times I come up with the subject as the theme music comes on.
I am aware.
Yeah. But so what we talk about is, I will say, who were any guests today? So he said to me, again, 5 minutes before the show, well, at the middle hour of the show, I asked Jerry Zucker, David Zucker, and Jim Abrams to come in. The book about their movie Airplane, which has happened 43 years ago, has just come out. Their memoir of the movie. And I said, wait, Israel has just undergone the most horrible attack in its history, the greatest attack on Jews since the Holocaust, and I'm going to talk about Airplane? And he said, people need a respite.
Mm-hmm.
So here's where I say I'm being open to the point that I wasn't even on my own show. I didn't agree with Alan, but I didn't say anything because A, he's the producer, and unless I'm passionate, I'm not going to override a decision he makes in that regard.
And he has excellent judgment.
And that's the whole point. That's right. You hit it on the nose. And he has excellent judgment. So there are a lot of lessons in this. I think in retrospect, he was right that we needed a respite, and this was as far afield as you could get. The 43rd anniversary of one of the 5 most successful comedies ever made into a movie. And with the authors and the 3 authors and the writers, and they all 3 were also the directors. So a few lessons, because I'm very big. If I can't learn a lesson from something, it's like it didn't happen. So one is, you really do have to know in life whom to trust over your own judgment. If you think you're always right, even about your own life, forget about politics and stuff. You're not going to lead an enriched life. You will make a lot of boo-boos.
Oh, this is so important.
Oh,
Great subject.
Yes, so this is a gift. I admit I don't even consider it praiseworthy. It's just a gift that I was given to always ask, what can I learn from X and Y and Z? So, but the reason is so that I could share it with the public. I want to help people lead a better life. That's my corny ambition with my life. So that's a very, very big one. And I have great faith in my judgment. I mean, we're not talking to Mr. Silly Putty here. I have strong convictions, but I trust him, and I know he has a sense. He was a screenwriter. He has a sense of what the public is up for. And everybody who works on the show came in and said, I can't believe you did that. It was a great hour, and we needed it.
Oh, wow.
And they had no idea. How could they know what I'm thinking about internally? Because you have no idea. And this is where I'm saying I didn't say this on my show. He has it. Well, maybe Alan has an idea, but I was so close to saying, Alan, I feel bad, but we just can't do it today. I mean, this is just a week after the nightmare in Israel, and it worked out great. So,
do you afterwards feel like it was? I know you say that Alan thought it was the right thing. Sean and everyone thought it was good.
So here
when
is
you were done.
All right. So that's a great question, and my answer to you is, I admit I don't know.
Oh, interesting. So you're still a little bit like, was that the right thing?
Right.
Okay.
But I depend completely on others' take.
Did you get any comment? I mean, I know it just happened, but did you get any comments from
callers?
Listeners saying, well,
no,
why the hell are you talking about this?
That could have happened, but it didn't happen. That is correct. That's one way. But the fact that everybody who works on the show thought it was fantastic. And they're all young. I mean, they're not even people who necessarily knew the movie.
Right.
And they loved it. And by the way, here's another awesome little thing. This I've known for years, and it's very sobering. So the first thing I asked you was, do you know the movie Airplane? And you never heard of it, correct?
Correct.
Right. So you are now, by the way, happy birthday.
Oh, thank you.
You're now 24.
Don't remind me.
You're moving up there. I know it's awful. How old are you getting?
Gold dealers are a dime a dozen. They're everywhere. What sets these companies apart, and who can you really trust? This is Julie Hartman for AmFed Coin and Bullion, Dennis's choice for buying precious metals. When you buy precious metals, it's imperative that you buy from a trustworthy and transparent dealer that protects your best interests. So many companies use gimmicks to take advantage of inexperienced gold and silver buyers. Be cautious of brokers offering free gold and silver, or brokers that want to sell you overpriced collectible coins, claiming that they appreciate more than gold and silver. What about hidden commissions and huge markups? Nick Grovich and his team at AmFed have always had Dennis's back. Nick's been in the industry for 42 years, and he's established a reputation built on trust, transparency, and fair pricing. If you're interested in buying or selling, call Nick and his team at AmFed Coin and Bullion. 1-800-221-7694. AmericanFederal.com. AmericanFederal.com.
By the way, the truth is, they start to zip along, don't they?
Stop! I know.
Well,
if only
all right.
you knew how much this is racking me. It's
Well,
racking me a lot.
we'll have to talk about that.
No,
Yes,
no.
we do. That it's racking you that you're 24 is worthy of some degree of consultation. But this is the point that I want to make. People need to understand the fleeting nature of fame. Everyone heard of that movie. Everyone. No matter how out of it they were, they heard of that movie. That was the most famous comedy, I would say, within a quarter of a century span. And you ought to see it, by the way. It is a total crack up.
I'm intrigued now.
Yeah, and it's very politically incorrect.
Good.
My favorite scene is the ultimate political. It would never happen now. I'll tell you my favorite scene. So it takes place. It's about an airplane, obviously. So there's a scene where the plane has hit turbulence, and one woman is starting to scream. She's panicking out. And so, I'm laughing just picturing the scene. About 4 to 6 passengers line up in front of her and tell her to shut up and smack her in the face.
Boy, have we all wanted to do that a few times.
That's right. Well, that's why it's so funny. And so this of course, there would be no way for me to know. So I said to the Zucker brothers and Jim, their partner, I said to them, that's my favorite scene. And they said, we totally get it. People love that scene. And he said, so here, Dennis, this you cannot know. We had the scene, and we had got people, men and women, lining up to shut her up.
Right.
Which is a pleasure in and of itself. And she said, I think they ought to smack me.
Oh, it was her idea.
Yes, it was the actress.
Good for her.
Good
probably made it a lot funnier.
Yes, of course it did.
Yes.
That's
a woman committed to her part.
Yes. And
for
I
her.
so salute her. And it is almost impossible for me to imagine that a movie could be made today with people lining up and smacking a woman across the face.
I will totally watch that because I don't want to veer off of this very important insight that you've made about
fame.
Fame, but knowing your blind spots and knowing when to defer to
both
others'
critical.
judgment.
Yeah.
However, we could have a whole discussion on planes because it is endlessly fascinating to me to people watch on planes. And my gosh, I'm just going to say it. There are some dregs of humanity on airplanes these days. Like creepy.
The airplane
unkempt.
today is essentially a flying Greyhound bus.
It is really, it's gotten like the...
Do you know what a Greyhound bus is?
No, I don't.
I didn't think so.
You don't miss a beat.
That's true.
You don't miss a beat. Yeah, I don't know what it is.
Okay.
I tried to play it off like I totally knew.
Great. So
I'm just 24.
Correct. Greyhound bus though still exists. That is the cheapest mode of transportation. I think it's the cheapest, and it's so you don't have generally the highest class. I don't mean economic class, just the highest class of people on those buses. So and it's Greyhound has stations or depots all in every city in the country. I mean, if you want to go from Oklahoma City to I don't know, Stillwater, Oklahoma, if there is such a place, you take a Greyhound bus. What else are you going to take? There's no train, there's no plane. So, right, train, plane, and bus, basically.
Right.
Okay, so that's all.
I feel like the crowd on planes has gotten worse. I don't know why. I have no
The reason is
data.
because they dress like they're going to the beach.
It's also just it's dress. It's that I'm sorry to get TMI, though all of us have been there. A lot of people are very unkempt. They seem dirty and like they're not being sanitary. I mean, I was next to a woman and she was like eating a burger next to me and the ketchup was dripping and I was just like, oh my God. And sometimes you see these people and they look really creepy and some of them look kind of drugged out and you're just like, I would love to go around with a pen and paper on the flight and go, where are you going? Or sorry, well, we know where you're going. Why are you flying to New York? What do you do for a living? Are you married? Do you have children? If you could distill your life motto into a sentence, what would it be? I just want to get a profile. Who are these people? Just weird people on these planes. Has society gotten more weird? By the way, were you reading a book about that? About weirdness?
Oh, no, I was, but that was a serious book. It's about how Westerners are weird in the best sense. That we morphed to a different drummer. No, that was not about weird people as you're
I feel like society, this is either going to land or totally or not land at all. I feel like people have gotten more weird.
Well,
and more delinquent.
That's probably true. And what I think about, remember, this is back to my old question to you: who has it worse? You who didn't know America as I knew America. Or me, who knew America like
Right.
I knew America. I mean, when I flew at your age, people didn't show up in shorts and t-shirts. I sit in first class at 6'4" and traveling every single week of the year.
You don't need to explain it.
Exactly.
Don't worry.
Okay. Anyway, I sit in first class, so I see everybody who comes on board. And I think the next flight, I am going to count the number of men, it's more with men, wearing T-shirts.
You know what? You and I disagree on this. I don't have a problem with comfortable clothes on a plane. The thing, I agree with you, society in general.
Well, and a big reason is because you didn't see society when it didn't
that is
just
totally
wear
fair.
comfortable.
That's totally fair. I think on planes, especially, you're so cramped, they're freezing. You probably think they're wonderful. I think they're freezing.
You think planes are freezing?
Are you don't think planes are freezing?
The first thing I do is turn on the air vent on top.
The first thing I do is turn off the air vent.
I'm sure.
I bring scarves
Right,
and
it's
double.
a classic male-female
I will wear
difference.
2 long sleeve shirts and a sweatshirt, and I'll have a scarf.
God, right.
And I'm
Okay.
freezing.
All right.
Oh gosh, you are so wrong about this. Wow.
Wrong is the word. Go ahead.
Yes, it is the word. I hear you. Society in general, we have definitely just succumbed to the dregs with regard to dressing. But on planes, because they pack you in like sardines, and it's so freezing, I get the
Comfort,
comfortable.
right.
But again, to me, it's more like the sloppiness, the unkemptness, the unsanitariness, just people who are who seem drugged out, who kind of smell bad. Like, that's the kind of stuff that I get very worried about. Because if you look at footage, this is your whole, I actually knew America. I look at footage of 50 years ago, what people looked like walking down the street. You just didn't see people who looked like delinquents. I'm sorry. You both in the dress, but also in the sanitariness, and you just didn't see people like that.
Have you seen we may have mentioned this in the past, but have you seen pictures of the way people dressed up for baseball games?
Yes, it depresses me.
In the 1950s, and we're not
I
talking
know.
about the 1850s.
I know, it depresses me.
In the 1950s, everybody watching this or listening to this should just look up pictures. It's easily found. Baseball game in the 1950s. Just, I guess, Google that. People dressed so much better for a baseball game then than they do for church today.
Yep.
Let alone for an airplane. And why does it matter? We've talked about this. It doesn't matter to me. It matters because one has to ask the question, why did people dress up whenever they left the house? That is an important question to ask. Even baseball game, restaurant, airplane. Why? Because the underlying thesis was, it's my way of showing respect to my fellow individual.
Yes. Well, we have talked about this, how there's no sense of respect for society, respect for the other people around you. And the thing I was just thinking about as you were speaking, and I was contemplating why it is that we see, as I call them, way more delinquents or delinquent behavior today than we did back then. And it's because there's no shame anymore. People don't have any shame if they're on a plane eating a burger and their ketchup's dripping and they're playing the video game. Like, we live in this society where it's like, let your freak flag fly.
It's particularly interesting given the high status of the self-esteem movement.
Right.
So you would think, doesn't self-esteem demand that I dress and act in a certain way, comporting with my self-image?
No. The self-esteem movement means do what is authentic to you.
That's right.
Despite whatever people around you may. Like, if I don't care how hungry, and I eat on planes. I'm not against people eating on planes. I'm against the ketchup falling. If I had a burger and I thought that it was going to make the person next to me, my sloppiness, I don't care how hungry I was. I would never do it out of dignity and self-respect. I would feel so ashamed, even if I didn't know the person.
Well,
I wouldn't want people around me looking and being like, oh, thank God I'm not next to that girl.
It's amazing how I resonate to your statement. So big fan of tuna salad. I love egg salad. I love tuna salad. I love chicken salad. I just like that food. And I don't eat the tuna salad on the plane, because a lot of people don't like the smell of fish.
Yes. I'm very careful with what I eat on planes. It's a very good point.
No, you made the point.
Oh.
So it is
It's a great point. It's an excellent point.
It's a very good point.
Yes. Someone needs to, I'll watch the movie on airplanes, because we have to do another movie on airplanes and how just utterly miserable. And another thing, I'll say this one thing and then I really want to get to your judgment point. There's no customer service anymore. It's really in every area of life.
Right. So this will blow your mind. Do you know that there was only one time in my life that I was for government regulation rather than free enterprise?
Yes, airplanes.
Yes.
Under Jimmy Carter.
Yes. Had I told you this?
No, I heard you say it on the radio.
Oh. And I remember at the time thinking, am I embarrassing myself? Because it so contradicts what I stand for.
Right.
But I strongly suspected that once airlines compete only on price, they won't give a damn about how they treat you. So, and I was right. They used to compete on comfort and service and on-time dependability.
Wait, so I don't understand. So you were for the deregulation?
No, I was again. I said it was the only time in my life I was for government control rather than deregulation. The government controlled airfares. That's what happened until Jimmy Carter. And then it was decided, and it made perfect sense, especially those of us for pre-enterprise, etc. They said, no, let the free market rule in airline travel. But there's no such thing as the free market ruling in airline travel. First of all, there's no free market no matter what, because there is to a certain extent, but there isn't entirely, because there's a limitation on the number of gates. See, the argument, the free enterprise argument runs as follows. You sell frankfurters. Well, in the free market, I'll sell better frankfurters at a cheaper price. I'll win. Because there's no limit to the number of frankfurters you can sell. But there's an inherent limit to how many flights you can schedule.
Yep.
It's based on the number of gates at an airport. End of issue. So it was always limited. It was never really fully free enterprise. But even putting that aside, all I knew was, if the government regulates the fares, how will they compete? On excellence. When they stop competing on excellence and only compete on fares, you don't get excellence.
Yes.
The seats got much tighter. There's less legroom today than there was before. They would even advertise, "Oh, Fly United, we have more legroom than American," or something to that effect. This must blow your mind. Do you even know that everybody, even in coach, got a meal? America's at a tipping point. Dennis Prager here to tell you about a new movie you should see. Dinesh D'Souza's movie, Police State. It exposes the government's relentless persecution of the conservative MAGA movement. The America we know and love is becoming more and more like a police state. The FBI has turned its eyes away from the real dangers in the world to target what they call domestic terrorists, with a totalitarian agenda that's treating conservative Americans like criminals. They're targeting their political opponents using mass surveillance and censorship, indoctrinating children, and threatening families with military-style raids on our homes, threatening people like you and me who speak our minds and stand up for freedom of speech, freedom of religion, our God-given American liberties. Directed by Dinesh D'Souza, Debbie D'Souza, and Bruce Schooley, Police State sounds the alarm. If you demand your freedom, they may be coming after you. How did we get here, and how do we turn the tide of this tyrannical government's agenda? See this movie, Police State. Buy it or stream it now at policestatefilm.net. That's policestatefilm.net. This must blow your mind. Do you even know that everybody, even in coach, got a meal?
No. That's amazing.
It is amazing because this is not that long ago, but it's in your life, it would not have applied. Everyone, if first class got a meal, economy got a meal.
That's equity.
That
Where's
was equity.
the equity?
That's right. That's the joke. It was equity. But,
it was inclusion.
Because they competed on food. You'll have a better meal on Delta, but not anymore.
Wow. Okay. Wow. I'm starting to feel bad for myself that I didn't live in the old America.
Oh, well, that is funny. It's not funny, but
I know.
It's funny. I mean, the memories. There was glamour to airline travel.
I'm sorry. Come again? There was glamour?
Yes, that's right.
Oh, wow. That would take a athletic, vigorous imagination.
So this will really get me in trouble, but that's fine.
You're already in trouble.
Exactly. Anyway, the question is not whether it's politically correct. The question is whether there's any truth to what I'm about to say. So here's another interesting example, and I'm torn. I fully admit it. I'm torn, but until I don't know what year, I assume the 80s. The airlines hired, I don't remember any male flight attendants. They were called stewardesses. That's what they were. They weren't flight attendants. They were stewardesses because it was basically always female. They were almost always young, and they had to meet certain physical requirements in terms of weight, for example.
Oh, really?
Oh, totally.
In terms of weight?
Yes.
Ooh.
Because it was a glamorous position.
Wow.
And you had to retire at a certain age. I don't know, was it 40? I mean, it was clearly a young age. Then, totally understandably, they said, no. It's not fair. We want to work as long as we want. We don't want any weight requirement. And now you have a fair number, and I'm hardly thin, but I'm not a flight attendant. and for talk show hosts and writing, weight doesn't matter. But in the airplane today, it is not glamorous, obviously, in terms of who is serving you, because weight doesn't matter and age doesn't matter. Now, this sounds sexist, this sounds ageist, and all of that stuff. The issue is not, is it sexist or ageist? The issue is it true? And I totally get it that people don't want to retire at 40 and look for other work. But if you know in advance that is the nature of this job, then I don't know that it's inherently wrong. But all I'm saying is there was a sense of glamour.
Well, look at models. I mean, models have. I think they've kind of tried to move in a different direction.
Yeah, though
now.
They're moving back now. It's interesting.
Yeah.
I was just reading Victoria's Secret. I think is going back to its.
But model. I mean, my God, to be a model, they're ruthless with your weight and your age.
They're crazy on the model. The models are almost anorexic. So don't even start me. The models world is not healthy. But believe me, the stewardesses. I mean, let me tell you something. If I would say to a friend, I'm going out, which I did. I remember once I was saying, "Oh, I'm having dinner with this American Airlines stewardess." The assumption was she was really beautiful and glamorous and so on, and they were right. That was the assumption.
Wow.
So all I'm saying is that was a different time. So is it a better time? In that regard, well, it's certainly better for the women who enter a flight. There's no question. But I don't think people should argue that no price is paid. But it's all of one. The stewardess was special and this passenger was special because they dressed special. Mm. And so it's all gone.
It's just amazing in general to learn that there was that glamour and that...
Again... What you should do is Google airline stewardesses 1970s or 1960s.
And you know what? I'm sure, look, and I think it's been, there are some more strict things like weight and I think that stuff was better to have been done away with. But it must have been more fun for the stewardesses to show up every day to work and
I would think so.
Feel beautiful and maybe even flirt with I feel like
well, it was a freer world in that way.
Yeah.
By the way, I'm really of two minds on this because I fully understand that a flight attendant could do her job. Talking about the women now, can do her job and be overweight. That's clear. Even in terms of if, God forbid, there's an emergency, I totally get that. But we're fooling ourselves if we deny the impact of the physical body on public persona. Let me give you two examples. So, just the other day, literally 3 days ago, I was flying back from Mississippi. Actually, I was in Mississippi and I flew back from Tennessee. I'm only correcting myself because I like to be accurate. And they said, okay, pre-board now, all those on active duty, which is nice. I think that's wonderful.
It is.
And so the only people who qualified for that were two women. They were not together, and they were both, it appeared to me to be overweight. And again, I'm not judging overweight people, but I am saying that when the members of your armed forces don't look fit, it has an impact on the way you think you're being defended. Is that fair to say? I don't want to go on unless you feel it's unfair.
Honestly, I would think that they may work in intelligence or there are other jobs in the military that are not combat boots on the ground,
Okay, that's
jobs.
fair. Obviously, I don't know what.
But yeah, if I saw someone that was, boots on the ground, combat.
Right.
Server. What's the right?
We're not allowed to acknowledge the uncomfortable.
Yes, that is 100% true.
It's the age of deny uncomfortable facts. That is what, by the way, that's the basic problem of leftism. If it makes me uncomfortable, I don't believe it's true.
Well, to use your classic great this or that example. Let's say there's a creepy guy who is lingering outside of your car, and you're trying to go to bring your groceries to the car, and this guy's kind of lingering by your car, and you call police, and he's menacing, why don't you come over here, and you feel sort of maybe physically threatened by this guy, and you call a police officer. Would you prefer your police officer to come, and your police officer is shredded and ripped, and you see his biceps and he looks like strong? Or would you prefer to have the police officer come who looks overweight and maybe not as physically competent?
Well,
I know which one I would prefer.
What about male or female police officer?
That's absolutely
true
as well.
Fit male versus fit female.
That's absolutely true as well. And look, I think with
my wife says it all the time. She says, if there's a fire in the house, I want men to show up. They may have to carry me out.
Of course. No, we do not acknowledge the uncomfortable. I do think with the female flight attendants, I think that weight stuff is antiquated and
okay,
I don't think that's fair.
It is antiquated, but I used
don't
it
think
in
that's
terms
right
of the glamour of the airline.
Yeah, no, I hear you
right.
on that.
Okay. I don't want to deny that it had a different aura. That's
completely fair.
Okay, these were glamorous women who were serving in the airline. Men felt it and women felt it. I'm sure my wife would agree with me, and she's a woman, and which is radical today, but she is a woman, was even born a woman. But I fully, as I said, I understand why it changed. I do get it, but we shouldn't deny things because they're uncomfortable. I'll give you a very interesting example. This'll fascinate you. So I have a subscription to the New York Times.
So do I, regrettably.
God forgive me. And anyway, so there was an article in the opinion section just this past weekend, I believe, something to the effect 6 or 8 myths about sex. So needless to say, I immediately went to it because will it give me something for the male-female hour?
Of course.
And so on. And the subject is fascinating, and I wanted to know. So some of it was quite coherent to me. One of them was, it is a myth that men are more interested in sex than women.
Oh.
So you know what I do with every article I read virtually, not just the ones I write. I mean, every article I read, I go to comments.
Oh.
And I always click on most popular.
Okay.
And especially in the New York Times, because you have to be a New York Times subscriber to make a comment.
Okay. Oh, I'm so curious. What did they say?
So the number there were like 500 comments. The number one comment, the most popular comment made was, this author is out of his or her mind. I don't remember if it was a his or her. Everybody knows men are more interested in sex. What are they talking about? Do women pay to have sex? If you hear somebody was paid to have sex, do you, gee, was it a man or a woman?
Look at, to make this more sinister, look at sex crimes,
Exactly.
Who overwhelmingly is the one who's raping?
Yes.
Women or
right.
men?
How many men are getting unwanted touches on their leg?
Right. Well, even
versus women.
Look at,
it's right.
I mean, when people deny the role of violence being more of a proclivity in men, why are 99.9% of school shooters male? And many shooters, most shooters in general, but especially school shooters, which is
No. So why would they write something patently absurd?
Well,
and the reason is they're uncomfortable with it. The left never asks, is it true? They ask, is it comfortable?
Yes.
Does it
Yes.
bother me? Not is it true?
Absolutely.
That's a perfect example.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
you're right.
Everybody knows it. I showed it to my wife, and she just totally cracked up. So they're not living on Earth.
And we use the male-female example with the police officers. I would rather have a male police officer show up to protect me, a male firefighter, a male security guard. That is totally true. But it also goes the other way around. Like you may feel differently because you're a man. I want a female therapist. Sometimes it's funny because my therapist is actually a male, but I usually have female therapists. My male therapist is just so wonderful that I've kept him. But I would rather have a female doctor because females are very I just want to make it clear it goes in the other direction too.
Well, you certainly rather have a female. Most women, a female gynecologist. I mean, that almost goes without saying.
Yes, I mean. And
I totally get that. Look, of course we have preferences. I rather have a female in anything that has to do with nurturing. That's right, like a nurse. And there were great male nurses, and there were crappy female nurses. All things being considered, I rather have a female nurse who was nurturing than a male nurse who was nurturing. I rather have a male nurturing than a non-male non-nurturing. Okay, I understand. You're right. That's right. We prefer different, but all of this is unutterable.
And you know what's amazing too? This is a realm of life that I can't believe hasn't been more infected by DEI, but it may be coming. I heard this girl in high school. I remember I was talking with her, and she said that it is racist to say that you tend to be more when people say what's your type and someone says Asian guys, or some people will say, like I was talking with a friend the other day who was saying I feel like my type is mixed race. She just says I'm overwhelmingly attracted to people who are mixed race.
You want a killer Black Friday deal? How about a free Moto G 5G phone from Pure Talk? No gimmicks, no trade-in necessary. Just sign up for Pure Talk's unlimited talk, unlimited text, and 15 gig data plan for just $35 a month. And get the Moto G 5G phone for free. But you need to move fast. These phones may be gone by the end of the month. If your current phone is on life support, upgrade for free with Pure Talk. Enjoy 2-day battery life, a quad pixel camera, and a whole lot more. Dial pound 250 and say the keywords Dennis Prager to speak with Pure Talk's U.S. customer service team. They make switching so easy, and it will make sure you get your new phone. Remember, Pure Talk gives you America's most dependable 5G network at half the price. Dial pound 250 and say Dennis Prager to claim your free Moto G 5G phone with qualifying plan from Pure Talk.
Years ago, a girl in high school was telling me it's racist to say that you have certain racial preferences with regard to who you're attracted to.
Unbelievable.
I think that's unbelievable too. I mean, look, if you said I am only attracted to this race because all the other races are inferior, and then right, I get that.
But nobody says that exactly.
And you know what my retort to her was? Well, is it sexist to be just attracted to one sex? If you're a straight guy or a straight girl,
all right, here.
Is it heightist to be attracted to, if you're a guy who's taller than you?
Yeah.
Is it weightist?
That's good. Heightist.
Is it weightist to prefer a guy who's more fit than less fit? Is it? I mean, think about. Is it beardist? If you like guys who have beard, like their attraction is such a specific, intimate you thing, and it's like. Anyway, I sort of see maybe DEI kind of going into that realm more of your attraction, because think about it, like romance is just total subjectivity.
Right.
No one is thinking about DEI in their romance lives. No one is
I
affirmative actioning their boyfriend.
I know white guys who way prefer Hispanic women to white women, way prefer Asian women to white women. Are they racists?
I know white girls who prefer,
black guys, exactly.
or my friend mixed race guys. I mean, again, it goes in both directions.
And it doesn't mean anything.
I know. I mean, yeah. So
you're right. I've
heard that.
I've heard that it's said that it's racist.
And again, if someone is saying, "Well, I would never, be with an Asian because Asian people in general suck," okay, that's racist.
This will blow your mind. So it is often noted that there isn't any report in all of Israel's wars of Israeli soldiers raping Arab women. When that is raised, the left, or some on the left, and some Arab writers say that's because they're racist.
Oh.
Is that amazing?
They really don't understand how the world works then?
Well, first of all, it's on the face of it, it's preposterous. Nobody looking at a Palestinian or a Jordanian or a Syrian and looking at the average Israeli could tell the difference. There is no racial difference.
Too. That's a very good point as well.
Half of the Israelis come from Arab stock.
Yes.
I mean, it's preposterous to begin with.
I know. Yeah, and
they don't rape because they're Jews and they were taught not to rape.
The amount of ignorance and really, leftism is a rejection of reality and a profound ignorance about the world. I mean, I heard someone say recently, like, two groups of people have never hated each other as much as the Israelis / the Jews.
You heard that?
Yes, someone said that. Like, in the history of the world,
well, right. Well, first of all, this is part of the lies that are told to remove all moral judgment.
Yes.
Okay, one side wants the other side dead. My video at PragerU, the first one I made about the Middle East.
Well, I mean, my God, do you just not know anything about the world? The Hutus and the Tutsis and Sunnis and Shia
right, but it
sectarian
isn't
conflict.
True about the Israelis.
I know it.
The hatred is overwhelmingly in one direction.
I understand that, but the fact that people just look at the conflicts and the things that are amplified by the media, like I hear people say, too, like, oh my gosh, well, black-white race relations in the United States are so terrible. They have no understanding of the world if they think that black-white relations in the United States are bad. I mean, holy moly. They just think like white and non-white or Western and non-Western people are the only people who hate each other. The Greeks hate the Turks hate the Greeks, the Armenians hate the Turks, the Azerbaijanis hate the Armenians, the Sunnis hate the Shia hate the Sunnis, the Hutus hate the Tutsis,
Protestants slaughter Catholics, Catholics slaughter
the Bengalis hate the Pakistanians, who hate the Indians, who hate the Muslims, who hate the Hindus, it's like, are you kidding me? The Tibetans hate the Chinese. Welcome to the world.
That's right.
I mean, we should actually write a list of all of the non-white people.
Steelers fans hate Browns fans.
Well, exactly. I'm not kidding. I'm going to do this. I need to remember this. I'm going to write a list of all of the non-white, non-Western people who hate each other.
You will have a very long list.
Yes. But I don't want to forget what you said earlier about judgment. I thought it was an incredibly, incredibly well said and important point. I feel like, I was reflecting on this a lot at Hartman.
What point are you referring to?
Oh, you deferred to Alan's judgment and and you said you need to know your blind spots.
Yeah, that's key.
I think we live in a culture that is very obsessed with how to be successful, but they focus on many of the wrong things. Like, for instance, I've always found it to be interesting that colleges and universities, including my alma mater, tend to pick graduation speakers who are like these breakout, insane successes. J.K. Rowling, Oprah, Mark Zuckerberg, Elon Musk. Those are the types of people who are kind of held up on graduation day as this is the enlightened person who can teach all the rest of you. I think it would benefit college graduates so much more to have a car dealership owner speak to us than a Mark Zuckerberg. Seriously.
Bless
Someone
you.
who got married, has kids, has their
Yeah,
own business,
that's right.
does a blue collar job, and
Right.
who learns things like because we tend to focus so much on way that you're successful is you invest in the right thing and you have your eye out for the right startup. And you know what? For seeing the Mark Zuckerberg on your graduation day, you get the idea that happens frequently. For every Mark Zuckerberg, there are 5 million people who were just as smart and failed. And so it's anyway,
I love it on so many counts.
That gem is so much more useful to every single person than whatever Mark Zuckerberg could tell us.
I would love to go through the most elite universities because they could choose who they want.
Right.
How many, what percentage of their speakers of the last 10 years have been billionaires?
Oh my gosh, almost all of them.
With all of their talk.
By the way, but we live in an elitist culture, right?
Right. Well, that's what they would argue.
Yeah.
Right.
We live but then we have all these billionaires.
We're going to reward the elite.
And by the way, look, I'm not just trying to say all of that is bad. It's hugely inspiring to see someone like that who's really just
all right. So
ascended.
let me then react to your point about the other 5 million who didn't make it.
Right.
So when I used to watch the Academy Awards, and I never watched an entire evening, but I would like to watch snippets. It was an insight into the world. Mm-hmm. So unbelievable. Almost every year that I watched, and probably every year, because I don't watch the whole thing, usually an actress who won, let's say, Best Actress, Best Supporting Actress, will get up and say, when I was a girl in Montana,
I dreamed of this moment.
And so let me tell you, you too should dream, because if you dream, it will come true for you too, or something to that effect. And I remember thinking, what are you kidding? How many people win Best Actress in the course of anyone's lifetime? 75? Out of 150 million women, 75 in 75 years? Oh, it's more than 150 million women, because that's only a static population.
Right.
So telling people if you dream it will happen is just nonsense.
Right. I would so much rather hear from someone who said, you know what, I dreamed it, I worked really hard, and it didn't happen.
Yes, and I made a happy life anyway.
And here's what I did.
That's right. I worked
that's so much more relatable.
I worked as a waitress or waiter in some Los Angeles restaurant, which is populated, for those outside of LA, it's populated by struggling actors and actresses. Well, and I realized that's not going to be my career. I decided to study X, Y, or Z, but most important, I decided to get married. I now have 3 kids, and I have a wonderful marriage. And you know what? I think I ended up at least as happy as I would have in Hollywood.
When we lionize people like Zuckerberg or Elon Musk, we celebrate who Nietzsche would call the Übermensch, the people who did it all on their own. And I can understand, I really can, how, universities or people who are having these forums with keynote speakers want to bring in the most self-made, inspiring, successful person. But I think we, again, get this idea that if we just believe in ourselves enough and rely on ourselves, then we will make it in the same way that they did. And I really appreciated your comment, because saying that you sometimes defer to other people's judgment, because it's humble. And it's, you could be like, I'm Dennis Prager. I'm the, 40-year-long talk show host, the best-selling author, the founder, I don't need anybody's judgment. But no, you're in that exalted position, and you're telling other people you've got to be humble sometimes and realize when you're wrong, what your blind spots are, when you need to shut up and defer to others. And that's just not a message that we get from this celebrated Übermensch mentality.
Right. Well, you did a great job in offering an exegesis on my point. Exegesis, for those who don't know.
Interpretation.
It's usually used in biblical exegesis, but it was excellent. So here is the interesting thing, because you're right to go back to this point. It's so big. I was open enough with you and our listeners slash watchers that I differed with him inside of me.
Right.
And I even offered a perfunctory objection, but knew I would go along with what he said because I so trust him. So there's another element to that. When you say it's humble, I guess you're right, but my description is it's rational.
That too.
The idea that I will always be right without the aid of others' wisdom is so stupid. It's not even an issue of humility. It's an issue of rationality. Why would I think? Why? I have great self-confidence, but you know that every word of my Bible commentaries, the 4 volumes thus far, every word is read out loud amongst 4 of us.
Yes, and you fight.
And we fight, and they yell at me, and they say, that's ridiculous. I can't believe you're writing that. Here's a much better point. And I love it. And I love it for a very selfish reason. It's not humility. I want the best possible book to be published.
I know. We are leading people so wrong right now when you see these college kids who are petitioning to change the curriculum and to introduce this new class or to get this speaker off the campus. And with the administrators often, have you ever heard an administrator say, no, you're wrong. This isn't right. We're not changing the curriculum. We're not, kicking out this speaker. We know more than you. We have 45 years in educational experience on you, and we appreciate your activism.
This is when you blow my mind.
But when do you ever hear you actually don't know everything?
Right.
My generation, I told you at my graduation, it was, you're the most tolerant, diverse, equitable, inclusive generation
That's right.
ever. You're going to change the world. Where's the humility? Where's the no, you don't have it all figured out. You're not the most enlightened people to ever live.
Did I ever tell you my reaction?
Eat some humble pie and learn.
So they changed the voting age to 18 from 21, I think when I was in college.
Oh, wow.
And I said to my girlfriend at the time, I remember this vividly. I said to her, I can't believe they're giving me the vote. I don't know anything.
Oh, my gosh.
And I was 10 times better informed than the average 18-year-old or 20-year-old.
Yes.
And I knew I didn't know anything.
I know.
I think it's both because, well, no, I don't even, I retract the opening sentence. I think it's because I was told constantly by my parents, you're wrong. Mm. They did not live to build up my self-esteem or confidence. They lived to make me a better man. That's all that their agenda was. Sometimes they were right. Usually they were right, not always. But they didn't think, oh, let's mollify him. Let's make him feel good about himself. My friends, I want to tell you about one of the most influential books of my life. In fact, it's on my list of the 10 books that most influenced me. And it's just been re-released. George Gilder's Men and Marriage. George Gilder has been clear about the stakes for the family since 1974. 50 years later, the need of the hour remains. Men who take responsibility for themselves, men who love their wives, men who raise their own children, men who tackle the workforce, motivated by their family and the needs of others. Without fathers, our civilization will simply sink back into the Stone Age. We need to bring dads back, or else. Get your copy of George Gilder's classic book, Men and Marriage, today at dadsareback.com. Civilization is built by men with families to feed. Yep, without the dads, we're toast. Get George Gilder's book at dadsareback.com. I often tell people, you, unlike almost anybody, really almost anybody, certainly anybody outside of the religious Jewish world, you're not Jewish, so it's particularly rare. You know what Shabbat dinners are like, Friday night dinners in a religious Jewish home. It's just talk. It's hours. 4 hours is a normal Friday night meal. And it's talk. It could be about baseball and it could be about the meaning of life, but it's talk. I think I learned to think and talk at the Friday night table. I didn't learn it at school.
And you're challenged.
Total.
I mean, I see that.
We're all
you challenge
challenged.
each other all the time.
Nobody feels the need to agree with anybody.
No.
Kids can challenge parents, and parents could say to the kid, you don't know what you're talking about. I will never forget when I finally had the guts. I was 6 years younger than my older brother, and there were just, again, 2 sons. So I would listen to my father and my brother talk Friday nights at the meal and argue and talk about heavy-duty stuff. Is there an afterlife? Well, who is God? All, meaning of life, etc. So finally, I don't remember the age, maybe 13, 12, I don't know. I finally spoke up on a Friday night. My father looked at me after I stopped and he goes, "That's ridiculous."
Good for him.
Yes.
No, so many parents would be
So
like,
there's
Dennis, you're so brilliant.
There stayed in my mind to this day. When I speak, is there a voice that will say, "Dennis, that's nonsense"? I think the word is nonsense.
Oh, it's so helpful. And you know what? When you're young, I actually, it's kind of comforting sometimes for kids to be put in. I mean, it is comforting for kids to be put in their place and actually kind of swallow the pill that they may not know everything. I remember being disciplined by teachers sometimes growing up. You know, I tell you, in elementary school, I was kind of, I was not the class clown, but I was a lot more silly and goofy and disruptive than I was.
By the way, we here do see the silly and goofy in Julie.
Yes, you do.
It has not departed.
Well, it's way more restrained than it was when it was little. And then as I got older in school, I was like the most locked in,
right.
Focused, serious nerd you could have ever met. But I remember sometimes being disciplined by teachers to knock it off. And there was something as a kid that was like nice and comforting about that. Kids crave structure and roles and boundaries. And it certainly made me a stronger person, but it kind of made me understand where I fit in life and the way I ought to behave. And that's something that, people are so afraid of hurting kids' feelings and making kids feel bad. No, as a kid, I wish I could better explain it, but it gives a kind of order and structure to you that you crave.
Yep. Well, guardrails are more important than nurturing.
Yeah.
I was saying to you before the show, we should do an hour on this or however long it would be. So I believe love is overrated. And I love love. I mean, just for the record, I love love.
And it's needed, of course.
Yeah.
So much.
But it doesn't mean it's not overrated. I mean, we need a lot of things. We need money. Mm-hmm. Otherwise you starve. But it is overrated. So the fact that we need something doesn't mean it can't be overrated. Mm-hmm. Unconditional love is the answer, God is love, all of this stuff, it doesn't help. The parent's task is to give kids guardrails. Love is a bonus. I know this sounds crazy to people. The first thing since the 60s, and not before that, the first thing people think of is, what should you give your child? Love. No, the first thing you give your child is guardrails. Mm-hmm. It is better to have guardrails with less nurturing than a bunch of nurturing and no guardrails. That's what you're saying. I mean, and I agree. Back to the original, because of the time factor in all our podcasts, but that I want everybody everybody should have people in their lives that they trust enough to think maybe they're right.
Yes.
Maybe I'm not. It is, by the way, I hold that even for my positions. Do you know do you know one of the reasons I read a lot of the hate stuff about me on the internet?
You want to know if they have a point.
That's right.
Yes. And by the way, I have read stuff, comments on my Instagram, and when people challenge me, there's a part of me, when I read some of that, I go, that's a good point. I should have considered that.
Right. The man, maybe they should have, maybe they
time.
should have said it nicer, but that I don't care about that.
Right.
I care, is the substance accurate?
Yes. Yep. This is a big insight. You got to know your blind spots and where other people can step in.
Because we all have them.
We all have them.
It's not possible not to have them.
And you compound your success, to use a word that everyone cares about and loves, if you do that.
That when people speak highly of my Bible commentary, and I'm proud. I think it's terrific. I know it's life changing, and your reactions move me tremendously. But only I know how many people help make it great. Mm-hmm. And the more, the merrier. I want stylistic editors. I write well, and I write fast. I should, after all these years of writing. But I know that somebody will be able to say a certain sentence more elegantly or more succinctly or challenge me in some way. And I love it.
We are really living in a society now that is seeing the consequences of not internalizing your insight. People with this I know best arrogance. This is the whole don't trust anybody over 30. They've had way more life experience than you. You probably should trust more people over 30 than people under 30. This idea of, well, we need to change all of these institutions with these new gender and race theories because this new enlightened understanding is better than all of the previous things that we have understood. Like, our society in general is succumbing to this, I know better than everyone before me, with me, and ahead of me.
It goes back to the self-esteem movement and back to everything's about feelings. You have to feel good about yourself. I feel good about myself if I've done good. I never feel good if I didn't do good. I'm a behaviorist. Everything's behavior. So that's why I get big debates about how important are thoughts. Actions are where it's at.
On a final note, I do understand, this was kind of the genesis of this conversation, I do understand the feeling guilty for taking some time to laugh amid this terrible moment that we're in.
Right. That's
and I
important.
feel that I also feel that on a micro level when I have a friend or a family member who's suffering or really, there's been something bad. I feel guilty for enjoying my life the next day or taking a moment to distract myself.
I'll tell you how I assuage my guilt. Did I interrupt you? Because if you have...
No.
Okay, fine.
No.
I'll tell you, I do have that. So the way I avoid the guilt feelings is by fighting. So right. I'm fighting for Israel's survival. Therefore, I know I'm allowed to laugh. That's again why I'm totally behaviorist. If you act good, that's all that matters. And if you act bad, that's all that matters. Not that you meant well. If you meant well and acted bad, I have zero sympathy. Finally, there was an ancillary point that I made in the beginning. Which,
remind me.
Yeah, and when I remind you, of course you'll remember, but it was a very interesting point. And there's no way for you at 24 to fully appreciate it like I do, but you will fully understand it, obviously. And that is how fleeting fame is.
Yes.
See, that you never heard of the movie Airplane is to someone older than you amazing. And I do this. It's a fun thing for me to do with young people. I will list the household names. I mean, give me 2 household names.
Taylor Swift.
Taylor Swift. That's exactly who I was thinking of. I want you to understand something. When you will be talking, not even in 50 years, in 25 years,
oh my gosh,
you will be talking to someone 25 years younger than you and say, Taylor Swift, and they'll go, who? I give you my word.
Seems impossible.
Seems impossible.
That's how you felt when I didn't know Airplane.
That's right. And
someone was talking to me the other day about Johnny Carson. Now I've heard
Right.
of him. I can't picture him.
Right.
I think he hosted the Tonight Show.
Yes.
But I only know that because I'm in this talk show world. And my friends have no idea who he is.
Every American, I mean, as close to every American as you could get, knew who Johnny Carson was.
See, I wonder if that will happen with like Kim Kardashian.
You're like that. Kim Kardashian.
That's gonna happen in 5 minutes.
That will be she will be forgotten within a year that she leaves the public sphere. It will because at least Johnny Carson was known for something.
You know what's? I know that we keep going on and on and on, and it's so fun. I will say what's weird about this modern world that we live in with regard to fame is that there are a lot of people who have an immense following on social media. Like 2 million YouTube subscribers, 3 million Instagram followers. And they and then they post a video and there are 17,000 comments on their video. But if you walked up to the average person on the street and said, who is blank? They would have no idea.
Oh, yeah, that's interesting.
Isn't that weird?
Yeah.
Like, how does that work?
Well, because often the fame is confined to the 2 million on Instagram. They're the ones who know the person.
Right.
And not
there's a lot
else.
more famous people, but there's fewer people who are known, I think, globally or universally, widely.
Right. There are more people with large followings because you could have that thanks to social media.
Right.
But
are they really famous?
That's a fair question. All I want every young person listening to know is don't think it's important to have fame. I suspect fame is more alluring than wealth.
Oh, yes.
If you asked most people your age, you could have great fame or great wealth.
Oh, it would be fame.
Isn't that interesting? I don't know that was true for most of American history.
When I was young, I used to think fame was so cool. And now that I'm older, I really don't, especially doing this job, I honestly don't care. I want our shows and my show to do well. I want to influence people, but fame itself, I honest to God, don't really care.
People, so this is I've
actually come to see it as a curse a bit.
Oh, well, it has ruined many more lives than it has helped. So I'm pretty famous, okay? I acknowledge that. Just walk with me through the airport, and if one needs anecdotal proof. So people think either I must be conceited, or if they know me, they marvel at the fact that I'm not conceited. So here is my theory. They think if they were this famous, they would be conceited. Which makes sense that people might think that. But that's not what makes me tick. What makes me tick is, am I having an influence? The joy I have when young people or any people come over for a selfie at the airport is not, oh, wow, I am famous. It doesn't even occur to me. I don't walk around thinking I'm famous for 2 seconds. Not 2 seconds. I'm reminded of it when somebody walks over to me. But it does bring me joy that they know what I stand for. Oh, you read my Bible commentary? Oh, you watched the fireside chat? Yes, it is cool. That's exactly right. Who was it? Was it you who saw the Starbucks guy reading the or was it? Oh no,
No.
it was Daniel.
It was Reed.
Oh, it was Reed.
It was Reed. Yeah.
That was adorable.
We haven't found him yet.
Yeah, I know. That's
It's okay.
We'll leave that alone. For
yes.
Now. Right.
Are we?
Yeah, we are. But
it's
to all young people watching or listening.
Don't smell on a plane. You don't know everything, and find an Alan
Don't think.
And watch Airplane.
Don't yearn for fame.
And don't yearn for
yearn
fame.
to do good.
A lot of lessons this episode.
Yearn to make a home with a good man or woman. That's rewarding. Okay, this was great.
It was. You can reach me at julie@julie-hartman.com, and you can also follow me and leave mean comments that I will read and internalize on Instagram and Twitter at Julie R. Hartman. You can follow Dennis at the Dennis Prager on Instagram. And Dennis and Julie premieres every Mondays on this channel, 1 o'clock Pacific, 4 o'clock Eastern, and you can listen to it on Apple and Spotify. We'll see you soon. Thanks for being with us. And shalom.
Thanks all.